One. Good evening. Welcome to Cat Space here with myself, Philip, and Leon, my dear
Carryover
friend and
champion.
colleague. Yes, yes. If you like what you see, first of all, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share to the YouTube page or any of my podcasts. Alrighty, so first topic is the
Yeah,
80s.
like for the yellow shirt.
I love the
Yeah,
image.
get one.
I'll go Marvel.
Okay, so the first topic is
Hang on. Yeah.
So first topic is music and movies from the 80s, things from the 80s that people 30, 40, 15 years ago thought would happen in our lifetime that hasn't happened yet, that we're still waiting for that to happen. Okay, so the first topic is movies of the 80s, which is things like Back to the Future, Teen Wolf 1 and 2, 16 Candles, The Breakfast Club. What was your favorite music from any of those? Like, what was your favorite 80s music?
My favorite 80s music. I suppose the first introduction to the 80s music that I had, or at least that I could think of at the top of my head, maybe would have been either George Harrison around 1987 or maybe the Proclaimers, maybe. I think that was 1989, I believe. They were my first real memories of 80s music. So that's off the top of my head.
I just remember when John Farnham hit the scene.
Ah, yes.
And he basically really broke what was known as the glass ceiling, effectively. The one track that basically, or one artist, I should say, that allowed America to start buying Aussie music, because before then it didn't really happen. It was like either American or British and nothing else. But then when John Farnham hit the scene, bang! Australia became internationally recognized for its music. That was actually one thing.
Well, I believe I believe you can go back even further than that. I think Men at Work, I believe, really broke the mold for Australian music, in at least the US part of it anyway. It was, I believe Down Under was a number one in the US.
Actually, yes, it was. I think it was. But I just remember those days, and it was just so fun. And what I find amazing about today is that the music of the 80s was just so good that they still use the music of the 80s. They still use all those ballads to make new music. It's almost like they can't write their own music. They have to steal music from the 80s.
I've noticed that too, especially in recent times, borrowing from the 90s music. Like, oh, wow, it was one I just heard just recently. Fast, oh, yeah, okay, we'll go to the 80s since we're thinking about the 80s. The song by Tracy Chapman called Fast Car, that's been remixed a couple of times in recent times.
Oh, I remember that song.
I like her song, Give Me One Reason.
That was around, I think that was 1995, I believe. Sounds about right.
I thought you were actually asking me a question. Give me one reason why I should like that song.
I love Tracy Chapman. It's very under. What do you call it?
She's underrated.
Underestimate. I suppose underrated. I'm trying to think of the word you might be on that.
Like I've listened to her music before, and in my honest opinion, there's like all of the songs that she's made are fantastic, but they're so deep. If you noticed, they're just so deep.
Well, there's one artist that I think we've forgotten from the 80s, Enya.
Oh yes, I love.
She had a massive hit, Orinoco Flow. I loved it. It really technically wasn't really a pop song. It felt more like a pop/chant song. That's why I loved it so much.
I love Sail Away.
Oh yeah, you gotta love
Sail Away, Sail Away, Sail Away.
I believe the song was called Orinoco Flow. I believe that's correct.
Yes, that's correct. But I remember my dad. He actually bought me the collector's edition of that, and if you actually look at the collector's edition, the covering is actually made of velvet. Okay, like purple velvet, and it was fantastic. I love that. But I also
There's another song from the 80s, Slice of Heaven by Dave Dobbin and her.
Yes, that's a Kiwi song. They're from New Zealand.
Yes, it is. Dave Dobbin. Yep.
And that song goes on for what, 5, 6, 7 minutes, 8 minutes.
Well, the long version does, but the video version goes for about maybe 3 or 4. But I absolutely loved that one. I feel
What
like, if I
about
remember right, the original video for Slice of Heaven, it wasn't actually with the band Herbs at the time. It was just a group. It was just a group of musicians that got in at the time. There you go.
what
Dave
about
Dobbin.
Crowded House? Neil Finn, Tim
Yep.
Fernando, Kiwi band who became later after breaking up, they became Split Ends and still stayed a Kiwi Aussie band, so to speak. But
It's the other way around. Split Ends became Crowded House.
I thought it was the other way around.
It might be.
No. Split Ends originally started up in the 70s, then they stopped in the 80s, and then reformed as Crowded House.
Oh,
I thought it was funny that a band like the Cockroaches could turn into the Wiggles. I mean, like,
Yes, I always get that too. And look at me, I'm dressed up like Yellow Wiggle, and here you are dressed up as red and grey Wiggle.
yeah, I know that was crazy because I remember my brother, he actually bought some Wiggle shorts. Not Wiggle shorts, Cockroaches shorts. And that all the skaters and all that were into that. And then little did they know that in a decade's time, they would just turn into the Wiggles.
I squished a cockroach this morning, actually. But it wasn't a yellow wiggle, it was a dead wiggle. It was a dead
what else
cockroach,
in
I
the
should say.
80s made it big besides the Divinyls? Can't say MC Hammer. He was the
Huey
man.
Lewis in the news.
Huey Lewis.
You mentioned Back to the Future there.
Back to the Future, yeah.
Yeah. Now, speaking of Back to the Future, DeLorean, it's still a piece of Americana. It's still being driven around by some celebrities, not all. But the thing is, 30, 40, 50 years ago, maybe 60 years ago, they thought, oh, in the new lifetime, in the new whatever, they're going to have flying cars. They're going to have live like the Jetsons. We're all going to be like up in the
I
air.
loved the Jetsons.
I love it.
I
And the things
loved
that,
them.
like, they thought we'd be like the Jetsons, flying in our cars and then going to work and folding that car up into a suitcase.
Wouldn't that be good? I mean, you just basically, fold everything up in a suitcase and then just, fly to work in your suitcase.
And then instead of having to clean the house, you have like a smart house that does everything for you. Now, there's another thing that in the 80s they thought would happen, and that is a smart house where you'd have and in the episode of The Simpsons,
We're starting to get that way. We're starting to get that way. We do have some smart cars and all that sort of stuff.
What about
Smart tech nights.
We're still waiting for
Hoverboards?
hoverboards.
Well, I heard like lots of, rumors about that there apparently was a hoverboard, but
Yes, I've heard that too.
incidentally, like the inventor said it was too dangerous for mankind to have, so he destroyed it. I mean, imagine if
I know we've got self-tying shoes. I believe we've got self-tying shoes. That's as close as we've gotten so far, I believe.
Yes, but they're no normal human can actually buy them because they're worth what, millions, billions?
Well, they do have hoverboards eventually, but they're not nearly as good as what they had in the movie, unfortunately.
And I believe that I agree with Philip. I remember hearing a report that they were too dangerous to use, and they were also subject to blowing up or something. Do you remember this?
Actually, yes.
Yeah, I heard that.
Yeah, I did hear that. So they said it was possible to do, so it wasn't hard to do, but they were worried about them overheating and therefore it causing a health hazard.
But the thing is, I say give it another 20, 30 years and they'll do something similar with hoverboards and,
Perfect the tech.
Yeah, perfect I read something on Facebook in the Watch Now thing, the videos where someone in Europe actually has the first flying car, and it's half car, half plane. And you can fly it and you can go anywhere in America with it or Europe.
Isn't that a hybrid?
Yeah, it is. And I was fascinated by that because I'm thinking, shouldn't we, you would have to have car and plane lessons to be able to get a license or whatever it is and then fly.
Man, we're talking some James Bond type stuff over here.
But
the person who has that is Richard Branson, Sir Richard Branson.
I'd just like to point out to everyone that basically an Airbus, which is effectively an aeroplane, is effectively a flying car. I mean, it has wheels, right? It has wings. It can fly. It carries people. That's what a bus does.
Those kind of hybrid cars that turn into boats, turn into jets or whatever, should be run on solar power because you can go around the world and keep it charged with all the sun that you get.
Actually, except in England, of course, where
No, but seriously, if you think
It's
about
not
it,
Hey, hang on, well, that's not exactly true. I was over there in England in 2008. You want to know how many times it rained?
zero.
None.
really,
Yeah, and it was during an English
Right.
it was during an English summer too, and it didn't rain. So, and the temperature, they were complaining. You know how they complain about the temperature where it's about 30 degrees? Come out to Australia during our summer when it's 40 degrees.
Like
And
today.
in Penrith at one stage, I think, what was it, last year? It was 50.
yeah, I know. I
I
remember that because I lived
Jinx.
I lived
Hey,
in
you can't,
Penrith
hey,
when
she
that
gets to
happened.
punch you now because you spoke while you were jinxed.
There you go.
Bit harder.
You can call that a punch. Next time, just go. Hey. Let's do like some
We
Three
remember
Stooges
that
like
50
stuff.
degree plus heat before. we
Oh
were living
yeah,
here.
I
Oh my
remember
God.
that, and I just
It's gonna be
remember.
pretty hot this weekend, actually.
Stay at home then.
I believe it was Saturday. I believe it was going to be around 38, and Sunday was going to be around 39. But I haven't checked the latest
Okay.
updated weather yet. I checked it out this morning. That's when I got that information.
Lots of ice cream and staying home and putting my feet up.
Oh, it's just fantastic for us. Yeah.
But speaking of going back to what we were talking about, do you think in our lifetime we will ever have something, i.e., like the Jetsons or a hoverboard or a flying car or something that the world is waiting for like that, or a smart
Absolutely.
house that talks to you that
I believe-
cleans everything?
I believe we will. I believe we will eventually. Someone's gonna have to think about it eventually. Someone's gonna have to perfect it, and we'll have a lot of fun with that. I'm pretty sure that something like that will happen. I see a lot of that in video games and stuff like that. I was thinking, somebody please make this work in real life. I would love to like travel across. I would love to buy a car that can sail on the water and just drive around wherever I want, as long as I don't run out of fuel on my way to New Zealand.
That's true. I think I would say give it 5 years before we see the first invention of, a flying car or living like the Jetsons, or, I know what you said when you said we have smart houses now, but if I remember correctly, a smart house like Patty and Selma's house, where the machine was in the voice of Pierce Brosnan.
Pierce Brosnan
And
trying to self-destruct himself, and what happened? I think it was Patty or either Patty or Selma ended up putting the self-destruction chip down their top,
yeah,
and he was trying to grab an ashtray and try to bash himself so he'd malfunction.
but like in the 80s movies, you saw all these in the 80s movies, you saw all these producers and directors and writers who came up with the thing. Smart houses, well, like even Back to the Future, smart house where Marty would walk in and the fax machine would be in every room, and all he'd have to do is, put his eye to the laser thing or his thumb, and he'd walk in and the door would open. And
Yes, I've heard about that.
the pizza thing was small, and then they just put it in the oven and it came out large, and all this sort of like Back to the Future would make you go, oh, arcade games are so old.
Well, so far we do have that stuff with lights, and also like gardening, water gardening and stuff like that. We do have that for lights. My brother actually has some smart lights downstairs. All we have to do is say lights, or I don't know what it's tuned into, but you could just say lights and the room will light up.
Hey, what's that movie based where it's got Harrison Ford in it and he starts killing all the robots and stuff like that?
I couldn't tell you that for sure because I really don't know.
Speaking
By the
of
way, I
robots.
did check out what the weather was going to be like. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and Monday. I've got those 4 temperatures right now. Friday, partly cloudy, 36. Saturday, hot and sunny, 38. Sunday, hot and mostly sunny, 41. And Monday, very hot and sunny, 43. Good luck me.
But speaking of robots, like I remember seeing on the news a few years ago, how in Maryland's and Stocklands they had their own robot that would direct the customers to to a different level of Stocklands, or they're talking about having robots that will clean for you, cook for you, you know, do your gardening, your laundry, and all you have to do is go to work and come home and not have to worry about, oh, I've got to cook dinner or I've got to do the laundry or the washing or something like that. Like they're now, I think, coming with the AI robots, and that's quite scary.
Yes, Blade
Yeah,
Runner is
I
that
see.
movie.
I see that. I see that. That was Stockland. This was reported at Stocklands, Maryland's in December 2016.
Yes, hang on. No, it was Blade Runner. One of the interesting things about Blade Runner is that one of the things that they did kind of predict perfectly wasn't so much of the fact that they had robots that looked like humans, although technically they do, but how if you listen to the music of Blade Runner and then you listen to what everything sounds like today, it's very similar, with basically sounds going off from your phones or futuristic sounds going off from your phones, as opposed to back then. So that was actually something I do remember, was the fact that the environment has somehow effectively become true, because everyone's got mobile phones and stuff, with different sounds. That's one thing that did actually come true.
What I love about is back in the 80s is that in the rom-com or the comedies, you see the limousines or the cars with the telephones in them, and now we have four-wheelers that have their own GPS nav satellite, and you can play music while Bluetoothing, while answering the phone, right, and speaking via Bluetooth. And that idea of the phone, I think, brought out the new GPS systems, the new nav satellite. You can listen to music, or you can talk to your family and friends via the Bluetooth, and you can use your mobile. It brought out the mobile phone. It brought out technology that we didn't think would. Who would have thunk it that a mobile phone would be the thing that in the 80s would happen that we now have.
Well, I do remember, actually, there used to be stacks of episodes of Star Trek where they
I was going to bring up Star Trek, where they've also helped shape the future as well when it comes to technology.
Yeah, I mean, if you like he's always talking to Data, which is basically a mobile phone.
The next generation,
yeah, and basically we have mobile phones everywhere we go.
Yeah.
So, but I do remember that the mobile phones back in the 80s were basically the size of a brick.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yes. I have a brick phone myself.
I love those old brick phones, don't you? I'd like to keep them for nostalgia purposes. That'd be tremendous.
Yeah.
But you know what? We didn't have Instagram. We didn't have Facebook. We didn't have Twitter.
Oh, no.
We had the internet, but it was only like if you wanted to Google something or you want to go on the net really quickly, and you had FM radio, and the camera was like 2-megapixel camera, which wasn't that great, but we could play snakes all day long to the battery, and the battery would actually last you, instead of 1 hour, 2 hours, it would last, like when you charge it, it would last up to like almost a full 24 hours.
That sounds about right, because Snake was pretty much the only game we could play, and I used to be the boss at that game.
What, the Snake?
Oh,
yeah.
I love Snake.
Snake is awesome.
You know what I used to be really good at? Tetris.
Yeah.
Yes.
I was just about to
I played it on the old Game Boy. It was fully charged. It was my cousin's Game Boy, and I played it. They said like, I would turn it over as soon as I lost. By the time I didn't lose, the battery went dead.
Yeah, that's
and it was going so fast. I barely had time to think where I'm going to put my pieces.
When I was working in retail, even if you go to like a place that you can buy a mobile phone outright, they still have the Nokia 5110, the old Nokia that you can play.
Nice.
Because the older generation don't know how to use all the later, don't know how to use Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. They don't want the internet. They just want to listen to the radio, and sort of they're able to dial and send messages. That's all they want. And it's actually still very much, people can still buy it outright and use it.
Actually,
yeah, they can. I believe you're right. I believe I've heard this.
I did actually have a friend of mine, and I'm not going to name who this friend actually is. She's a bit older than I am, just about my mum's age. But I said, I was talking to her on the phone, and she was trying to get a hold of my mum. And I said, oh, look, you can call my mum on my home phone. Oh, sorry, on our home phone. And seriously, she didn't realize that up until now that she could call a home phone off a mobile up until now. For real. She knew she could do mobile phones, but she didn't know that she could call it her mobile phone to a home phone.
I believe she also might have been hesitant to do that because if I remember right, it was a lot more expensive to call a home phone from a mobile phone than it is from calling a mobile to a mobile.
Yes.
Yeah, I think I've heard that before.
I'm going to go off track for a little bit. Speaking of mobile phones, since when did we bring in the area code like The Simpsons? Like they didn't tell us about, oh, you've got to put O2 for everything.
Yeah, I got a brother and he works in telecommunications, and he said that he can understand that O2 thing. You actually that's another program that all telecommunication companies like Telstra and Optus would normally pay for. That literally everyone takes for granted, but it does cost money. And what Vodafone's done is they don't want to have to pay the bill anymore. So you have to put O2 for everything in, and it's the most annoying thing ever.
And why didn't they tell us this? I mean, sorry, it's off track a little bit, but it's like The Simpsons. They never told us about the extra area code.
Actually, they did. If I remember right, they did. They did. There was an advertising campaign, I believe, in the 90s, because we'd run out of numbers, so that's the reason why they took off the first two parts of the number and added the two at the beginning, or whatever the postcode was. The area code, I should say, at the time. So, for example, what was it, Penrith? I believe it used to be 047 or something along those lines. Just to call Penrith, you'd have to dial 047 and then the number. And they chopped the zero up, and all of a sudden you had the first two numbers to go along with your numbers, so that freed up a lot more numbers.
But isn't that creepy how The Simpsons Homer freaked out over the area code, and that they didn't tell him that now this is happening in our lifetime? Like we have to put the O2 or the O3 or the O7 or the O8 or whatever, and now we're having to dial the extra numbers just to a number for an area code. Isn't that bizarre?
It's only a matter of time before we have to extend the number again because of the population.
Well, actually, it's a really good point, because I have, I think, 5 or 6 numbers that I have that I know belong to other people, and I'm pretty sure that their phones weren't stolen. It's just that they ended their numbers with whatever provider they were with, and so
Right.
that means that they would have taken that number and then sold that number to another person, and then all of a sudden, my friend that I haven't seen in 5 years is going to a person that basically I've never met in my entire life. And it's so annoying because this has happened like 5 times to me.
Right.
So that's one of the
what I'm
things
saying is a little bit going a little bit off track is what I'm saying is, isn't it creepy? Like in The Simpsons, they had that, and now it's happening in our lifetime. Like it's just a bit sort of creepy to me. Like what's happening in The Simpsons is accurately happening in our lifetime.
Thank you. Oh God.
Is that from menu log?
I've come close to using menu log once. But at the end it was Doug who actually made the order.
Let's not talk about menu log.
This was just given to me from my neighbor.
Oh wow.
Yo, yes, please. What is it? It's cake.
I'll let you know after I sniff it a few times.
Oh,
we got part of it's chocolate, that's for sure. It looks like caramel as well.
Oh, I was gonna say caramel cake.
He gave me a cake and didn't give me a spoon or a fork. Great.
Just eat it with your hand.
Gonna have to lift it up when the ants come in.
You know what else I love is that the 80s music is like 80s music still lives on in our generation, in our lifetime. People
Oh
like
yes.
Billy Joe, John Bon Jovi.
I don't know if Billy Joel still makes music anymore. I thought he retired back in 1993
Yeah,
or
but if
something,
you
just
notice,
after The River of Dreams came out.
yeah, but if
No,
you,
but he hasn't really retired. He writes music for other artists like
yeah, but
Elton John.
but the thing is, his music from the 80s gets sung in almost every karaoke bar.
Yeah, that's true.
Oh, no doubt. Piano Man for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, or
And
Or
Uptown
she's
Girl
always a woman to me as well. If
or
you're
Uptown
dedicating a
Girl.
love song, yeah, Town Girl, yeah, that's one.
Bon Jovi with "It's My Life," "Bed of Roses." Um, um, what's the other? What is the other tracks?
well, I like
If
Billy
you love a
Joel's
bad name,
Piano
Yep.
Man. Piano Man always got played in every karaoke that I was in.
sing us a song. You're the piano man.
But do you know what else I love about the 80s is that the fashion of it has made a very strong comeback. Like the old dresses that you see now girls wearing, I would not wear it in my lifetime. No, thank you. But
I think we can thank Madonna for that
I would
because she
never
wore
wear it.
all that funky stuff from the 80s.
But the one thing I have that I absolutely love in my closet, it looks like something out of the 70s or the 80s. And you know that hippie blouse that I've got?
Yeah, it's
Oh, if it's hippie stuff, then that's more 60s, I would
Yeah, but
imagine. I
if
think I
you
was
could
like
wear
late
it, you
60s.
could wear it in the 80s and have like a flower headband.
But the truth is, you could wear anything in the 80s.
But I love
I-
bell bottoms.
One
I got
thing
an idea.
Oh, go on.
I got an idea, Kat, right? If you let your hair down, right, and wear that kind of crazy psychedelic top and with that flower in your ear and just wear some funky glasses, you could pass as Janis Joplin.
Oh, I love Janis Joplin. Just love her.
I like the
There you
music, but it freaks me
Me
out.
and my Bobby McGee. That
Uh,
was such a tremendous song.
You know
Sorry,
what the sad thing
tremendous,
the sad
fantastic.
the sad thing is about her version of Me and Bobby McGee, it was famous, but unfortunately it was released after her death.
I'm
And
still
it would have
waiting on
been her
them
birthday
to.
as well.
I'm still waiting on them to do a biopic on her and have Pink play her.
I think they did do a biopic of Janis Joplin. I'm pretty sure they have.
Well, they should do another one. They do so many biopic remakes. They should do one with Pink in it as the main lead. Because Pink is the right woman to play her.
You can't yawn on podcasting.
No.
That's like a
Yeah, here we go. Yeah, here we go. This was from 2016. Michelle Williams played the role in Janis Joplin's biopic. That was
Absolutely.
around 2016.
So it's called Joplin, if I'm not mistaken.
It would have been called Joplin, but maybe it happened, maybe it didn't, because I'm seeing two reports here that it was Michelle Williams to star in the Janis Joplin biopic, and then Janis Joplin biopic starring Amy Adams. So I don't know who else was in it, but apparently it might have been shelved in 2017. So that was like a year between when Michelle Williams was rumored to the point where Amy Adams, that's a shame
I
because
think it'd be successful if Pink plays her, because they'll be an Academy Award winning, Oscar winning, Golden Globe winning.
you'd have to hide the tattoos because Pink has quite a few tattoos.
Oh, God love her. I love Pink. She's my girl. Ugh.
Do you know what I actually remember is the fact that everyone, I think pirating was really rife in the 80s. Like I remember that a friend of mine used to be able to get two VCRs together and hook them together. Whilst
The old tape to tape technique.
yeah, the old tape technique, and
Piracy.
and they would tell you, oh, don't pirate because it's of worse quality, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, it was basically the same quality all the way around, kind of thing. It doesn't matter whether you bought it. Whether you bought it.
Whether you bought it, you must have been thinking about my cake.
Whether you bought it is the correct term.
Whether you bought it, from Blockbuster or rented it from Blockbuster, which is the correct.
You know what else I love about the 80s is that's made a massive splash in the millennial section and the Gen Z and our generation. Karate Kid, Ralph Macchio, William Zabka, Cobra Kai now has in this generation has spun 35 years, 30 years later, 35 years later, about the story of Johnny Lawrence and Daniel LaRusso going head to head, but now in season 3 teaming up finally and having their own dojo with their kids and whatnot, and the kids from Cobra Kai, and kicking Crease's butt finally with Terry Silver in season 4.
Here's one. You actually mentioned stuff from the 80s that is now making a reemergence. Smurfs.
Yes. Oh,
The
yes.
cartoon. I absolutely loved the cartoon, the Smurfs, when I was a kid. And yes, that's right. And that seemed to make a comeback during the last 10, 20 years as a CGI kind of movie.
Like, I saw the first 2. To be honest, I didn't enjoy them.
Yeah, you know what? I loved the original Chipmunks.
Oh, I love Alvin and the Chipmunks. Those are my fave.
But I didn't like it when they put it in 3D. I for some reason, and I don't know why exactly. I mean, I should like it because it's.
I think it might have been the CGI. It might have been a case where the CGI.
I have all the Alvin and the Chipmunks movies, but I couldn't understand why they had to create the Smurfs and the first one and the second one, and I thought they were bad enough as each other. Like they should have never made the Smurfs, because leave it with the cartoon. The second one was a bit too dark, and they weren't even funny. Like the Smurfs weren't too funny.
Here's one that continues to make a comeback throughout the last 30 or so years, the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
I love
From the
that.
original series, they made a second spin-off after the original series, and then they made another one, and they've made another one since then. So it's more
the movies were also
Minecrafty.
I have to admit, the movies were also terrible. I'm sorry, but those movies were terrible.
It depends which movie you're talking about.
All of them.
Okay. The original movies were actually quite good, in my opinion. The original one. The later movies, yeah, not too much. But I did actually kind of acknowledge the whole Shredder, even though that's not technically 80s per se. It's more sort of 90s. They really revitalized Shredder, and I did appreciate that, actually.
And it was in the voice of Uncle Phil from Fresh Prince of Bel-Air.
Really?
Yeah.
Speaking of the Ninja Turtles, there was one voice I used to be really good at during the 80s version of the Ninja Turtles, and that was Krang. He would go something like this: I want you to go to the Technodrome to get rid of those accursed Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles.
Very well done. Very well done.
And if you can't, don't bother coming back to Dimension X, Shredder.
You know what cartoon I absolutely loved in the 80s growing up watching? And it highlighted what is happening now, which is to do with climate change in our world and Mother Earth. Captain Planet.
Oh, oh wow, it's been such a long time since I watched an episode of Captain Planet. I used to watch that one. There was also another one that I used to watch as well. I believe it was from the 80s. I'm pretty sure it was The Mysterious Cities of Gold.
Oh no, yes, I love that. And do you know why?
I've got the DVD collection because I loved it that much.
That is so good, because one of the things about that show is that there was just everything it went right with it. I mean, at the end of it, there was like a bit of history about the Incan cities, and then there was even how they drew the characters themselves. I mean, that you could relate that to some of the Japanese cartoons as well that used to be made. There was so many good things. Even the story itself had a lot of accuracies in it. They actually did their homework.
Yes. It also based on historical accuracies. That's what I loved about it.
Yeah. So they actually did, go to real places and stuff like that. I mean, even though the stories obviously
Cornish, the storylines are Cornish, but it's history and it's kids, and it's a kids show, and it was educational.
Yeah, but it was based off real landmarks and real tourist destinations, and that's what I love.
Right.
You know what else I love about the 80s was Bill and Ted's Excellent Adventure and Bogus Adventures, which 30-something years later they reprised their roles of themselves and they've done the
Don't
movie.
spoil. Don't spoil it. Whatever you do, I haven't seen. I
I
haven't
haven't
seen
seen it
the
either. I've
2020
heard some
version.
bad reviews about it, but I'm game to watch it and see what it's actually about and what it's like, and if it's any good, then
But they did the same thing with Ghostbusters. They tried to reboot it as an all-female cast, and they should have called that the death of a franchise.
The thing is, I saw that movie, and everyone that on YouTube basically tried to didn't want to review it because they didn't like the idea that the Ghostbusters changed or whatever. But you know what? I saw it, okay, and I saw it for what it was, and I thought it actually wasn't a bad movie. I mean, yes, it basically every single original Ghostbuster was in it, and they didn't really have a proper role. They were all pretty much just extras, really. But
And they were all against the fact that about the Ghostbusters and stuff like that. And they were all against it. The original cast, some of the members of the original cast played cast members in the female version of Ghostbusters, downplaying the Ghostbusters. That was a disappointing reprise of some of those roles.
I mean, look, I'm as a girl and a female and a woman myself, I'm not casting out any girls or women, more power to them. But I just think keep Ghostbusters as the original Ghostbusters, the way it was written, done, delivered. Keep it as that. That's such a brilliant, brilliant movie. Another 80s movies I liked was How My Stepmom's an Alien.
yeah, I don't ever want people to ever rewrite that ever.
That's such a classic.
I just don't want them to fix that or change it or whatever. I just don't. There are some movies I just want people just to leave alone. Just keep them in the 80s.
Have you ever seen that movie?
No, I haven't. But I did. But yeah, you mentioned that we're mentioning Ghostbusters. While we're mentioning Ghostbusters, there is a sequel, and there is a new Ghostbusters movie coming out. Supposedly at least this year in the United States. I think it says here June 11, 2021. Ghostbusters Afterlife, and it actually stars Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, Sigourney Weaver, some of the original cast members from the original movie.
Oh, fantastic! So basically,
reprising their old roles. Bill Murray as Peter Venkman, Dan Aykroyd as Raymond Stantz, and also Sigourney Weaver as Dana Barrett.
I heard that too.
But I've heard that that Ghostbusters have literally wanted to do so I've heard a few stories about Ghostbusters, and I've heard things like for example, Ghostbusters 3, the game was basically the same as Ghostbusters 3. Okay, that was the new movie. That's what they were declaring as the new movie. And then they had the female Ghostbusters, which again I didn't mind because I thought it was pretty good. I mean it wasn't like the original, but it was okay. I didn't hate it. But I've heard that so many times, and until they actually do it, I don't know if they'll do it. That's all I'm going to say about that, because they've said that for years that they're going to do a comeback, and and I think I've heard that for 10 years so far. So until they actually do it, that's when they'll do it.
Well, like I said, Ghostbusters Afterlife is slated to come out on June 21. It was delayed twice. Originally it was supposed to come out in July 2020, but obviously COVID that ruled that out, and it was delayed. It was delayed a second time. So, apparently this as what you said, third Ghostbusters film had been in various stages of development since Ghostbusters 2 back in 1989. Can you believe it took nearly 30 years for them to come up with a threequel?
I can, and I tell you why. Because, I think it was Bill Murray that didn't really get along with some of the directors when it was being made, and they'd already all of the cast. They all had basically main movies of their own. So to get back in to become a team again and make Ghostbusters again and fighting for the best role would have probably gone on an ego trip, to be perfectly honest. I mean, it's the same thing with what was that movie that um, it had Arnold. It basically had all the action heroes in it, and
Last Action Hero.
and it wasn't Last Action Hero. It was another one. It had Arnold Schwarzenegger in it, and it did
Ah,
have. You know the one I'm talking about, right?
I'm not 100% sure about it. I'm
Had
just trying to
Stallone,
remember the
Stallone
name.
directed it.
I
But
can't,
anyway,
I
it
can't
was. I think you know who's Goldie Hawn's husband. Um,
Mr.
Ted
Horn.
Danson.
What about
Ted
Ray? What
Danson.
about
what's the oh God? I've got such a
He-
brain freeze.
Kirk Douglas?
No, the other one.
Wasn't it Ted Danson?
No, not Ted Danson. Ted Danson can.
You know what? Really, the weird thing about saying the word Ted Danson, it actually reminds me of Elton John's song. It was a song called Tiny Dancer,
Yes.
and every time I hear that, for some reason I always picture the word Tony Dancer. It's like, hold me close to Tony Dancer.
I have to say, Who's the Boss was such TV shows like Full House, Who's the Boss. You had what else did you have? Beverly Hills 90210. You had Melrose Place. You had what was the other ones? All these 80s TV shows that made made it into the 90s. Beverly Hills got renewed into like this teeny bopper,
I remember Different
teenage
Strokes.
millennial.
How about that for a name? Different Strokes.
Do you remember when Beverly Hills 90210 the recreation came out, and it was successful, I think, for a month, and then after that it just went downhill. Like it just went downhill, like south really quick like that. They should just leave it alone. Just leave it alone. Leave a cult classic alone.
Yeah, I kind of feel like some of the there was this really good movie called Weird Science. Do you remember that?
I remember that.
I've heard of it. I just haven't seen it.
Well, okay, that produced a movie, and it also produced a remake series. And in my opinion, they did a really, really good job on it. But this is during a time where everyone saw computers as this kind of mystical thing where you can do literally anything, including hacking into a government site to get more space, basically. And you could never really remake that. So it's almost like you would destroy the magic of hacking if you were to make it today. I know that sounds quite, sadistic in a way, but I don't think you'd be able to make it due to the fact that people know too much about computers, because computers is in pretty much everyday life, for you to kind of have this fanciful, wonderful imagination, even though you think, okay, well, this could never happen because, I mean, no one uses DOS anymore. Or no one, you could never basically make a woman out of computer because well, where are you getting the skin from? Where are you getting the eyes from? Are you cloning this person? What's going on? So it's movies like that were a classic about people that really didn't know enough about computers that it could still become magical, kind of thing. And that's why I don't think you can make that movie back, today. And I wish and I hope they don't make that movie today for that reason, because they'll destroy the magic.
No, there are some movies they probably shouldn't touch. Like even though they have, unfortunately, they did remake Mary Poppins. That's one. That's one of the classics.
That was
and they remade it.
Saving
That's
Mr.
probably
Bags.
one of those
One
things
of
that
the
they
worst
shouldn't have done.
movies they ever made.
The sad thing about that was the fact that was actually closer to the real Mary Poppins. A lot of people don't realize that the real Mary Poppins was actually a bit more nastier than people think. The movie was like the most diluted, the original movie was the most diluted movie, from the book. I mean, really the only thing that was the same were probably the characters' names, but it was really, 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 really diluted from the actual original book. The original book was actually quite turns Mary Poppins into a stern person that no one likes. It's like your worst teacher ever.
Yeah, but speaking of
Cruella de
Mary
Vil.
Poppins, Speaking of Mary Poppins, Dame Julie Andrews is one of the best actresses the world has ever seen and known. And a cult classic like Mary Poppins and, you know, should have been left alone. Saving Mr. Banks was obviously about Walt Disney wanting to bring in a story about Mary Poppins. And they should, Tom Hanks, as a great actor as he is, philanthropist, human being, you know, I think he shouldn't have done Saving Mr. Banks because it was just an I saw the movies and I walked out like half an hour later. Like it was an absolute flop for me.
See, the thing is, I actually liked it, but again, it actually destroyed
Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins, and just destroyed my love of. I mean, I'll always watch and love Mary Poppins, but it's almost like, you know, you've just told me a truth that I just really didn't want to have to know, kind of thing. And that's what I hate about some of the new movies that are coming out today, is that they have to make it perfectly accurate as if it could be done. You know, like, for example, like, do you remember the 1985 Batman? I mean, that Batman was fantastic. I loved everything about Batman. I loved the car. I loved everything about it. CGI, whatever.
I used to be able to do the. I used to be able to do the Batman voice too. Hi, I'm Batman.
That's not exactly it.
Yeah, but that just makes
Well,
like,
that was a
sounds like
different
he's got a
version.
sore throat. I mean, like,
No, but like, okay.
Does anyone have a lozenge?
Okay. The thing
Wayne
is, right,
Enterprises.
the thing is right about Batman. You have the legendary Michael Keaton. You
Yep.
had the legendary Michelle Pfeiffer as Catwoman. And then after they did the sequels to that, then came, you know, George Clooney.
he ruined
Then
that.
no, I loved the George Clooney
No,
ones
he totally ruined that.
with Alicia Silverstone. And I loved but the one I didn't like is the one with Val Kilmer. That one didn't draw as much, but the George Clooney and the Michael Keaton ones were the best.
You know, the Arnold Schwarzenegger one.
Yeah, that was good.
No, that was terrible.
That was really good.
That was terrible. I'm sorry. I love Batman, but I hated that movie. That it was like, this is so unlike Batman that there's virtually the only thing that even resembles Batman is the fact that it has Batman in it. But apart from that, it's basically like going to the circus, you know, on marijuana, effectively. That's how I saw it. You
Yeah,
know?
but the thing is that I have to say Arnold Schwarzenegger role in that as Mr. Ice was really, really fantastic. But
That's what I like as an actor, Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson in his
yeah.
later years.
as the
Jack
Joker.
Nicholson in his late, you know, Jack Nicholson in his later years. I'm not just talking Batman here, but in his later years, he became better, and every role seemed to suit him, no matter what he tried to play.
Yeah.
And because I think now to a movie that he starred with Adam Sandler called Anger Management.
Oh, that was
the way
a great
he
movie.
was so crazy. The way
I've
he
never
was so
seen that.
crazy, and it worked with Adam. So if you get a chance to see it, I don't know whether or not you'll like it or
I
would you
think when you
be disturbed about it.
Philip made me sit down and watch The Joker with him. And to be honest, it scared the living crap out of me. Like I was so petrified and frightened. And having, you know, when I saw the late Heath Ledger in I think The Dark Knight or The Dark Knight Rises or something like that, or Batman.
I think it might have been The Dark Knight, but it had.
Yeah.
I think it would have been The Dark Knight if Heath Ledger was in it, because
I
I
just
think that was
think
one of
they
his
should
last
have
movies.
just stopped making it after Val Kilmer. That should have, or George Clooney. That should have been just it, because the two new Batman ones were awful.
I actually liked the Joker. I liked it because it was funny, but it was effectively just another movie about Taxi Driver. Effectively, it even has Taxi Driver characters.
Who was
in
the
it.
actor as the Joker?
It was Jacqueline Phoenix, I believe.
Joaquin Phoenix.
Yeah.
And
That's
it
right.
wasn't funny at all. Like he's not I don't know. I respect Joaquin Phoenix and his work, but I don't know. He's not as strong as actor. Like I don't know.
I don't know. He's
I
been
don't
in a
like
lot
it.
of good movies, like that firefighter movie.
Yeah, but I just don't agree that he's a good actor. I mean, he's
I
had his time.
I think he's a great actor, and I think he's underappreciated.
He
to be
had his
perfectly
time.
honest.
Walk the Line was a good one. Walk the Line with
Okay.
Reese Witherspoon.
Walk the Line. That was the Johnny Cash one, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I've actually got to. I've still got to see that movie. To be honest, there's a lot of those movies I wish I did see, but I didn't.
It's
Just for completionist purposes,
okay.
Batman, the
It's
original
okay.
Batman movie. The original Batman movie came out. The very first one of the very first ones was a 15-chapter one in 1943.
It's okay. I mean, sure, if you want to know a lot about Johnny Cash and his life, I say see it, but it's okay. It's not that.
You know why? Because you're mine. I walk the line.
I like the song to Folsom Prison.
Yes.
And what's the
Like
other one?
that, yeah,
Ring of
I
Fire.
like that
Ring
one.
of Fire is my other one. It's my other
Yeah,
favorite.
that's like good advice, because that's what happens when you eat too much curry. You get the ring of fire.
Philip. 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 It is a podcast.
Yikes.
Like me, it's either Elvis or nothing.
Oh, I love Elvis. Elvis.
I've
pretty
got
great.
most of
One
his
of my
DVDs.
favorite Elvis ones was one of my favorite Elvis songs was "Are You Lonesome Tonight?" But it was the one where he actually lost it and started laughing all the way through it. And Sissy Houston, which Whitney Houston's mother, by the way, kept it going, tried to keep her harmonies going, and Elvis just could not focus, and he was too busy cracking up laughing. And at one stage, he says, "Sing it, girl."
You know, I've got his telly movie, and I've got a couple of his DVD movies which I enjoy. I'm being a huge Elvis fan, being a huge Elvis girl. I absolutely like it. I love the 68 comeback special. And I think people like Blake Shelton and all the mother singers who did a tribute to Elvis a few years ago for the 68 comeback special. People like Post Malone, Blake Shelton, and all these other artists, paid tribute. And I thought it was absolutely beautiful.
Okay, I don't get me wrong. I love Elvis and I love his music and stuff, but I feel that Elvis has been done way too many times. Like I've seen Elvis movies about his life. I've seen Elvis movies when he's visited Richard Nixon. I've seen just Elvis movies that literally have nothing to do with Elvis Presley, except he's in a hospital with a guy who believes that he's an ancient Egyptian worker or something like that. I don't know.
No, look, Elvis and Nixon is a great movie on Netflix. Watch that one. But if you watch his telly movie, his made-for-TV movie, Jonathan Rhys Meyers looks identical to Elvis. He's got those gorgeous, mesmerizing diamond blue eyes, and he's got the little lip thing that he does. And even though he's Irish, you can hear his Irish accent come out in the movie when he tries to talk American and use his lip. But the way he just looked like him, acted like him, sounded like him. He even sang a little, like he didn't sing, he mimed, but the whole Elvis lookalike thing, he absolutely nailed the part, and he looked just like him.
I believe every year there's a train that goes through, I think, New South Wales or something like that, where it's just a bunch of Elvis people, Elvis impersonations.
I think that's the Blue Mountains.
If I remember.
I think that's the Blue Mountains.
I think it might have been the Blue Mountains as well. I'm not exactly sure, but
I heard about it going to Lawson or whatever, which is near there.
And there are in Australia, there are like Elvis tribute, singers or lookalikes, and people go watch them. But to be honest, no one will ever replace the King of Rock and Roll.
Well, I don't know. Many have tried.
No, we only have a few. We only have a few, right? The King of Rock and Roll is Elvis Presley. The Prince of Pop is Michael Jackson. But who would you go as female?
No, the Prince of Pop,
rock princess.
He's the
Prince
King of Pop.
Michael Jackson.
The King of Rock and Roll is Elvis. The King of Pop is Michael Jackson. The Prince of Pop is Justin Timberlake, and the Princess of Pop is Britney Spears.
No.
Yes, and the Queen of Pop is Madonna. That's how they rate them in Hollywood. King of Rock and Roll is the legendary King Elvis Presley. King of Pop is Michael Jackson.
Right.
King of Pop is Madonna. The
I
Prince
see.
of
I
Pop
see.
is
King
Justin
of Pop
Timberlake,
is Michael
and the
Jackson.
Princess of
Yeah.
Pop is Britney Spears.
I always thought the Prince was basically the Prince of pop or Prince of sex of whatever.
But Justin
Prince
Timberlake,
of Sex.
Justin Timberlake,
What's on your mind?
Justin Timberlake will always be known as the Prince of Pop, and Britney Spears will always be known as the Princess of Pop, and the Queen is Madonna. They are royalty. Elvis, Michael, Madonna, Justin, and Britney are the royalty of America. Okay, because they don't have kings and queens, therefore they are royalty. That's the lineage. That's where it goes. That's where it goes.
One person who unofficially has also been declared the Prince of Pop. I'm just looking at multiple articles.
Probably be
Amazingly
Justin Bieber.
enough, amazingly
Oh,
enough,
Justin
some
Bieber.
people are saying Shawn Mendes.
Oh yes, yes. Oh, a Canadian cutie. Yes.
Too
Hello,
bad he's already taken. He's already dating. What's her name?
Camila Cabello.
Yes.
She was in
Oh,
Fifth
boy.
Harmony, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes, she was. She was in Fifth Harmony, and now she's in
Solo artist.
Shawn. No, now she's in Shawn Mendes.
But she's a great singer. I have to give her kudos. She's a great
I
singer.
love the Latin pop. I think it's
Yeah.
great.
There's nothing like Selena, the beautiful Selena.
Selena Gomez.
No, Selena, the pop princess Selena was shot many, many years ago by an obsessed fan. Jennifer
Yeah.
Lopez played
Oh, right. I remember.
Yeah.
Here,
Yeah,
now
I
that you
remember
mention
her.
it.
She was a great musician,
Yeah,
and
great
and she
singer.
got shot because
of an obsessed fan.
one of the,
Yeah, it
one
was
of
a
the
Christ
fans felt
band.
that she was turning to American. Music's supposed to be enjoyed by everyone. Unless it's
And
terrible.
Jennifer Lopez played her before. That was her big acting debut, which was Selena. And knowing Jennifer Lopez now, she's engaged to Alex Rodriguez from the New York Mets. And their life is beautiful. But the thing is, here's the thing, right? Lineage. King of rock and roll, Elvis Presley. King of pop, Michael Jackson. Queen of pop, Madonna. Prince of pop, Justin Timberlake. Princess of pop, Britney Spears. Here's your lineage.
Yeah, but
I always thought our Australian princess of pop's always going to be Kylie Minogue.
Yes,
yeah,
the
that's
Australian
true.
Princess of Pop is Kylie Minogue. The next one will be
Yeah,
Delta Goodrum.
Why? That's well, maybe I didn't think about dubbing Delta as Princess Australia's Princess of Pop once Kylie throws down the what do you call it? Hands over the torch.
Like that's ever gonna happen.
Like that's ever.
But I
But
had Melt Delta one time. Yep, go on.
I've met her in the blind auditions. I went to watch the blind auditions many years ago, and she's actually quite a nice lady. She's a sweetheart, and she's very kind. And I also love Jessie J as well. But what I'm saying is, in Australia, you have Kylie Minogue and Delta Goodrum, who are known as the princesses of pop, who are also known as Australia's sweethearts.
Yeah, that's about right. Another one movie that I was disappointed with, then we go back to movies just quickly. One movie that I was disappointed with in recent times, it was the Olivia biopic.
Oh, I loved it. I loved it.
To be honest, I didn't like it as much because it felt like it was a dramatic reading of Olivia Newton-John's Wikipedia page. There was some parts of that which in order felt like a dramatic reading of a Wikipedia page.
But for me, I absolutely loved it. We all got to see who Olivia Newton-John really is as a human being, not just as a singer, songwriter, artist, performer, but a human being, a girl from Australia turned singer, performer, actress,
And hated in the country music scene.
Yes. And then she became a mother and, a world-renowned legend. I'm sorry. She's the queen of pop in Australia is Olivia Newton-John, and the princesses are Kylie Minogue and Delta Goodrum. Here's your lineage in Australia.
Have you noticed that
pretty-
the whole music industry, when it comes to choosing said kings and queens of pop, is kind of changed a little bit? Like before, it was just based off raw talent alone, right? But now they have to kind of have a little bit of a story behind them. It's almost like for every song that they write, there has to be some sort of downfall that they've had in order to make themselves famous, as if to kind of speak to the audience that they're playing to. Like you can't just make a song now without a backstory behind it. It's kind of a little bit weird kind of thing.
But
Why can't we just
I
make
think that
music for the sake of making music instead of making music because because someone broke my heart like 3 weeks ago?
well, I'm kind of disagree with you there, Philip. Unfortunately, yeah. Always songs to me always have meaning. You know, you write songs about experiences. That helps me out. That does help me out. I'm assuming it might help you out, Kat.
yeah, of course.
There is a couple of songs there which I thought, just writing stuff for the sake of writing stuff. It became to a point where I didn't know what else to write. That was really playing with my really expressing my emotions and stuff like that, and that's why I turned to parody songwriting. That's the reason why I turned to parodies, because I had a lot more fun, and the chains were loosened. If you're gonna sing about real experiences and stuff like that, chains are tight.
If you want to sing about heartbreak, Olivia Newton-John's "Hopelessly Devoted to You" is a heartbreaker. It's a heart wrencher, and every time a girl has heartbreak, every girl goes to karaoke and sings "Hopelessly Devoted," and they listen to it and they cry. I've cried in that song when I used to be single, and
If
it's
I
a
remember, if
perfect
I
song.
remember that right, wasn't that in the Olivia biopic? Wasn't that written at the last minute
Yeah,
to be
for
added into
Grace.
Greece?
Yeah,
I did have like, don't get me wrong, I'm not meant to offend you in any way or shape or form, and I do get that music was meant to have meaning and whatever. So I totally understand that and agree with you on that. But what I found in like kind of like shows like The X Factor and other shows like Idol is that they have to have some sort of backstory for why they're up there. And that's what in fact, I actually had a friend of mine who was in a band and he was just about to be contracted actually. And one of the members of the band had cancer. And the agent actually wanted to exploit that to make to sell the band, as if to say they cared more about cancer than the band, and they didn't like that because they felt that they were using their friend's disability to sell
To put
albums.
themselves over, yeah.
Yeah, and that's
I
that's
wouldn't
what I
have, I
don't.
wouldn't have gone. I wouldn't have agreed with that either. I'm with you. If anybody wanted to exploit my family or stuff like that, I would not let them.
of course, no one would. I
No,
mean,
that's
remember the heartbreak we
just
all
wrong.
felt when Kylie Minogue announced her breast cancer and the whole country stopped, and then Delta Goodrum at the age of what? Delta Goodrum was
21 or something.
yeah, she was a baby, and the whole Arias was dedicated to her, and
Yeah.
and then she beat it, and then you had Kylie Minogue, and now Olivia Newton-John, who's I think battled it and won, or who is still battling, and it's just
Olivia's definitely battling it. Yeah.
yeah, and, sort of it hits home like. But let's not go to illnesses because that makes me sad. But a heartbreak is definitely hopelessly devoted to you. I
I
mean,
will tell you,
Some
when you mentioned that Aria tribute to Delta, and I'm pretty sure you're thinking about the Darren Hayes
yeah,
version of Lost Without You. I tell you what,
exactly.
I was listening because I always like to watch these ARIA awards. When I heard that, I was in tears because it
So
was
was I.
such a, I think just about everybody was, because it was so beautifully done, and only someone like Darren Hayes could have possibly made that work.
Yeah. I think he would be known as Australia's Prince of Pop because Darren Hayes did everything from Animal to Truly Madly Deeply to what's his other songs? I Knew I Loved You. Um,
They were all with Savage Garden, though.
yeah, Savage Garden, but as an he would be known as in the lineage as the Prince of Pop because his music is just gorgeous. It's like stunning. It's like listening to a masterpiece, you know. But
The fact that his range is so unbelievable for somebody who sings pop music, especially
yeah,
in the likes of Savage Garden, was truly unbelievable.
I think we need to promote our Aussie artists more than we do overseas, because I remember
And
doing.
that's what Tina Arena or something like that said.
Here's another princess of pop. So you have Olivia
Tina Arena,
Newton-John, then you have
Tiny Tina.
Kylie Minogue, Delta Good. You have Olivia Newton-John, then you have Tina Arena, Kylie Minogue, and Delta Goodrum and Darren Hayes. This is your royalty here in Australia. Here's your circle. You know, here's who has it. These. I'm not here to offend or upset anybody who might leave a comment about this or upset you or offend you, but people like Jess Malboy. Now,
I like her. You hate her, don't you?
I didn't say I hate her. I said she just, I don't know. To me, I'm sorry, YouTubers, but I don't like her voice.
The thing is, I do. I really like her voice, and I like her music as well. And I really respect not her just as a woman, but I respect her because she's got talent.
I respect her as a woman and a human being, but I'm sorry, she can't sing.
There's a lot of people that think otherwise, Kat.
Guys, there is a YouTube video of Jessica Malboy. I think it might have been around 2001, I believe, because this was after, I believe she won a Tamworth Festival, or Tamworth Country Music Festival, or something like that. I can't remember what it was off the top of my head, but her first single release, sorry about the dogs there, you can hear them next door. And I'm not going to close the window because otherwise it's going to get really humid in here real fast. Because I imagine my dad's watching the 2020. But Jessica Malboy, her first single was not running back or something, one of those songs that she teamed up with Flow Rider or something along those lines. Her first single was roughly around 2001, and she released a cover of, get this, Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun.
I don't know.
Really? No, that can't be right.
It is right. Trust me on that. I'm the kind of person that would know this. It's definitely, she definitely released. Right. It is. You go check it out. There's a video of it on YouTube. It was from roughly 2001.
Is it?
Is it?
Look,
we better do a fact checker of this stuff.
Look,
you won't need to, because I'm already telling you a fact check, and that's it.
Going back
Jessica Malboy's first
going
single.
back to the 80s. Okay, we've gone off track a little bit. Going back to the 80s, you know what they should bring back from the 80s that was so good? TV dinners. Stick them in the microwave and eat them.
You know what? But that got changed rapidly to lean cuisine, terrible food. In fact, I find anything before TV dinners were cool. TV dinners were the thing, right?
Yeah, they were.
And then all of a sudden they got put in a black box and they tasted terrible.
Of course.
And now you've got these lean cuisine stuff where they only give you half the food that you really, really want. And it's almost like, they're
god awful.
You're giving them, to these frozen dinners, because I refuse to call them TV dinners. I call them frozen dinners because that's about what they are. Just frozen. I can't even call them food. I'm sorry.
One thing about TV dinners this time, they don't have leftovers. You have reruns.
That's true.
No, but like you've seen The Simpsons where they're consistent, like they're always having TV dinners. And I thought to myself recently, it would be a nice surprise if they had TV dinners again. It really, really would be good.
That was sent by me, by the way. That was the Jessica. I've sent you to say when you guys are finished. The Jessica Malboy video, Girls Just Want to Have Fun. That was from 2004, not 2001. I apologize.
It's all right.
So fact checker was well needed then, just because we got like a couple.
Well needed. I got my facts right. I got the year wrong. That's all.
But actually, do you know the spaghetti western? How they got that name is because not the fact that they were eating spaghetti or whatever on the show. It was because spaghetti companies were sponsoring these Western shows to come out, and that's why they called it a spaghetti Western. So I bet they sold a lot of spaghetti.
You know what they should bring back from the 80s as well? That'd be really super funky. Not just the tie-dye clothes, but the leg warmers and the hand warmers and things like that.
I don't know about the leg warmers. I don't look too good in leg warmers, I don't believe.
No, but they should bring them back for the girls because I think it'd be really cool. Like if like
Tie-dye, I would love to wear some tie-dye. That'd be
I
great.
would
That's more
too.
like 60s kind of stuff, isn't it?
Yeah.
I also look at the way that the clothes have changed. Like you like for example, different pants
Yeah.
have different names.
Now that you mention, I was going to say, now that you mention that, what is the deal with the jeans that are already torn and selling them as actual new jeans?
I know, like I
It's
remember.
been around for
What's
years.
up with that?
It's
Yeah,
been
but
around
what's
for
up with
years.
that? Why would you want to buy pants? Why would you want to buy jeans at full price that are already torn?
Well, I've heard, and not that I agree with it, but I've heard that torn jeans with a story are actually worth more than brand new jeans that haven't been touched, ironically. And I don't know why exactly. It seems stupid to me, but it's true. And the thing is with you, I think it has something to do with the fact that originally in 80s jeans where you'd have like torn jeans because you've basically skated in that or ripped jeans where there's a story to tell, you look totally badass with that. I think that's basically where it kind of comes from. But then over time it's just kind of moved to plated jeans, to make it kind of look badass
I think
but
that
not. So it was, I think originally the idea of plated jeans came from a designer that actually felt sorry for the homeless. And so they didn't want homeless people to look like that they were homeless. So they made brand new jeans that looked older to kind of make up for that. And I actually remember walking into
It's
Top
kind
Ride.
of exploiting the homeless.
Well, it actually kind of is, isn't it, Lou? But I remember walking into Top Ride Shopping Centre before they built it and built it up and whatever. And I was with my friends and stuff like that. And I was wearing a pair of jeans that was 10 years old. And they thought it was a brand new pair of jeans because it'd just been worn out for so long. But
Right,
they identified
right.
that as plated kind of thing. So
I'm still wearing clothes from about 15 years and people still think I look cool. Man, what do they know?
I actually do know that one of the things about blue jeans is that one of the reasons why it was so expensive in Russia during communist Russia was the fact that because blue jeans came from America, it was really hard to sell American goods to Russia during the Cold War. And so everyone wanted blue jeans. That was just one thing that everyone wanted, and they just didn't have access to it. So blue jeans were worth more in Russia than they were in America, if you could get your hands on them.
Oh,
But that's-
why?
Yeah, but like it's, I think I just think it has everything just to do with the story of the jeans, and that's where the value is. I think it's a lot like, you know, having, knowing that you've got this guitar that to you is worth a lot, not just because you've paid a certain amount of money for it, but because you've owned the guitar for ages and you've got memories with it. So it has that sort of worth. And I think they just wanted to turn that into gem.
Speaking of guitar, I actually still have a guitar over here from around, 15 years at least. I'll just go get it. Just give me a second. This is great, by the way, for a podcast. Hang on.
Oh, wow, we can actually see him walk. Oh, wow, this beautiful. That is nice. That is a nice guitar.
There you go. Yeah, my old acoustic guitar, and it's still pretty good too.
Oh, it's beautiful. That's a beautiful piece of art. That is.
And I always keep it in tune as well. Bugger. Need to retune
Do you have any Metallica?
it. I'll need to get strings for the electric guitar. Hang on, let me put this one back. But all right, so just give me one moment. Throw this stuff down so yeah, take a look at this.
That's a nice
Real guitar. Okay, let me put my tins back on. Okay, there we go.
So
I do have two guitars in this place. One's an electric guitar, obviously I need strings for. I've got an electric piano. I've got a piano keyboard, I should say, in the lounge
Oh,
room
do you
or in
know
the
what I loved
hallway.
about the 80s? Sorry.
Yep.
You know what I loved about the 80s?
Yep.
The keyboard guitar.
yes, that was
That was used at the Little River Band's playing to win, if I remember right.
It's
I'm pretty certain that
the
was.
keyboard turned into a guitar, it was a single that became a double piano guitar thing. I actually love those. And it was like there was no wires or anything, so it was like wireless, and they just turned it on, and sort of like it sounded so awesome. And that's the whole beginning of wireless, I think.
But well, the only real guitar slash keyboard or whatever that I can remember was used in the Little River Band's playing to win. If you look at it carefully, you'll see it's clearly obvious at some point, certain point in there. I just can't remember what point.
What were you asking me for?
I don't know, I've forgotten. I was thinking about the 80s, but you were just getting us back to. Oh yes, there was one. Do you remember the movie Rain Man?
That was a good movie.
Yeah, that was a great movie.
Didn't that star Tom Cruise or something?
Yeah.
Yes, it did.
Dustin
And
Hoffman
Dustin
and Tom Cruise.
Well, one thing I actually remember about that movie was the fact that the riff or the theme that was used in that movie was actually used in one of Snoop Dogg's songs. And if you listen to that, yeah, it was. And if you listen to that song, I always liked it, and I would always play it on my keyboard at home, on my Casio keyboard at home.
Oh,
and
yes.
5 years later, Snoop Dogg basically makes a song out of it. I'm kind of annoyed about that because I feel like I liked it and I was playing it first, and I just didn't have the sense to record it before Snoop Dogg.
I believe there was one song that caused a resurgence because of that particular movie, I believe. It was the Bell Stars, Iko Iko. That's it. That's the one. It originally came out around 1982, but with this movie, it actually became a top 10 smash.
My
If I remember it
grandma
right.
said to your grandma,
Yeah,
sitting by the fire. My grandma said to your grandma, I'm gonna set your house on fire. Talking about Hannah, Hannah,
Hey now.
I know, Chucking up, anane, chucking up,
Finale.
That is so catchy.
Oh yeah, I love that song.
What about Cyndi Lauper's Girls Just Want to Have Fun?
So I love that song, but I heard that there was another really sexist song that was made because of that song. And it was like, guys just want to have fun. I haven't heard it. I'd have to.
Amazingly enough, when you mentioned Girls Just Want to Have Fun, the original version of that was by Arrows, I believe, from the late 70s. Oh, hang on, was it Arrows?
And
No, it was someone else. No,
Cyndi
sorry, it was
Lauper
someone
as
else.
well.
The Arrows, what I was thinking of, they had I Love Rock and Roll. So
I love that. That's
Joan Jett, I believe.
Joan Jett, yeah.
Mainly famous by Joan Jett. But
and
Girls Just Want to Have Fun was originally, was it by Robert Hazard in the late 70s, I was thinking.
And redone, I Love Rock and Roll was redone by Britney Spears.
Yes, it was. I believe that was 03 or something like that.
And it was in her
2003.
movie Crossroads, which Philip hates and I love.
Oh, I can't stand that movie.
I love it.
I really don't.
Speaking of pieces of crap called movies, Glitter by Mariah Carey. No.
Actually, yeah, sorry, Mariah, but that was boom.
But actually,
sorry, Mariah fans, I mean to insult her. I don't even.
One movie I actually did love was Thelma and Louise. I thought that was a great movie.
Chick flick.
Well, it's everyone's flick because it's got the perfect story of people just wanting to run away from everything.
Even though he doesn't do it for me now, Brad Pitt, a young, shirtless, handsome, sexy Brad Pitt.
Speaking of interesting plot twists, Sylvester Stallone actually teamed up with Dolly Parton one time for a song.
No.
Ugh.
Really? What was it?
The song was called "Stay Out of My Bedroom." Just trying to pull up which
How
movie
would
it
it
was.
sound?
I'm
singing?
sorry, that just sounds like BS to me.
I can just hear his voice come.
Stay out of my
Yo.
bed. And he said this to Dolly Parton. Are you kidding me?
Yeah.
Yo, I'm so
Well,
the Lord.
first of all, he wouldn't have been able to get into the bed.
Exactly. How did he get through the front door? That's how I want to know.
Speaking of final 80s music and movies, Last Action Hero.
Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Last Action Hero.
I actually really liked that movie. I saw that with my father, and I loved it. I loved it. It was a really great movie.
All right. And by the way, that duet with Sylvester Stallone and Dolly Parton you can find on the movie Rhinestone.
Oh, is that like a rhinestone cowboy?
I
Rhinestone.
actually haven't seen the movie. I'm just looking at the
Never even
soundtrack
heard of it.
details right now. It's from the movie Rhinestone from roughly 1984. I believe it won so many raspberry awards, not Academy Awards, but golden raspberries because they were, the S word.
Shit movies. Shit award for shit movies.
But there you go. It's from the movie Rhinestone. You'll find Sylvester Stallone, Dolly Parton singing "Stay Out of My Bedroom."
You know, I think honestly that if the fact that you get acknowledged by is the raspberries come out of the Academy Awards, or is that
No, it's like made up for the worst movies and TV shows ever.
Yeah.
I do know that, but which Academy does it come from? Does it come from? It's not a Golden Globes.
It's
award.
its own award.
It should be a golden brown. It should be a golden brown award actually, because the movies that they're giving awards to, quite frankly, were shit.
All right. To quickly summarize, 80s. Oh, one more thing before I forget before we go, dial up in the 80s.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I used to like. Yeah, I've got an old telephone in the lounge room, but unfortunately, there's no way for me to actually take it off the wall and bring it in here to show you. It's a very, very old school telephone. It's one of those ones where you stick part of it to your ear, and you got to be right up to it. And it's got the old,
Spiral.
yeah,
Oh.
spiral thing as well. You dial the number that way. And when somebody rings you, no matter where you are, you will hear it because it is so loud. It's got like little bells on either side when someone rings, and it's almost like the sound of a fire alarm going off, or some of those old, like the old sirens, or like say, what do you call it? A fire brigade. You know, when they got an alert, you know, that sounds the same kind of pitch. It is very, very loud.
But remember when we had to like take the Ethernet cable from the computer to the phone, and every time from outside, right, and make this god awful noise, and you were jumped off the internet. You were jumped off the internet, and you had to wait for your parent or your brother or sister to get off the phone, and it's sort of like wait till you hook it back up again and redial, and you get like.
I think that was roughly the early 90s when that started coming in.
Well, that depends where you were. So if you were in Australia, then
yes,
that's when that happened. If you're in America, I mean, they had dial-up modems for ages.
Absolutely.
Like, you know,
imagine having your dad or mom or brother or sister or just your brother bring up, you know, use the phone, pick it up, or someone bringing, and they pick up the phone. You're like halfway on the net on DOS, and you're playing a game or you're doing something on the internet, and it just logs you off, and you get the shits because sort of like, I just got on, like.
I just got a high score. Now it won't save.
Remember the floppy disks?
Oh my god! You know, I used to have a Commodore 64, which used
So
to have
did
those.
we at home. Oh my god!
Those old floppy disks, those huge 5 1/4 inch floppy disks.
It was the size of your face, like you couldn't lose it.
It was the size of a thing of cheese if the cheese was twice the size.
I remember when I was a kid and I bit into one of those things, like hoping.
You bit into a disc.
I bit into a disc because the thing is, it wasn't like the.
Thought it was cheese.
It wasn't like a plastic thing that you got that was this big. It
Was
was
that this wide with a
it
circle?
was
in
a
the
It
really
felt like-
big one. It was the size of the computer.
Yes, the old disk drive was
And
huge
then they
too.
made them into the hard floppy disks, remember?
Yep. The
The
three and
steel
a
at the
three and
front
a
of
qu-
it.
the 3.5 inch discs. I used to have them.
Both of them
Oh,
made
you-
really good frisbees. Just pointing that out.
No, the,
And
the
on
one,
them,
the one
like-
annoying, yeah,
Hey.
the one annoying thing about those 3.5 inch discs is, say if you had an operating system on it, it was like 3 or 4 discs, right? And if one of the discs was stuffed,
The whole
you
thing was-
couldn't complete your
I
install, and
know.
you'd be so salty chips.
But there
I
was
know.
there were ways around that. Like there would be this thing, if you had a Mac, right, and you had those discs, it would encourage you not to actually put in one disk at a time. But if you wanted to, you could actually save the whole disk to the desk drive. I think it's
Yeah.
a desktop.
Yeah.
And run the
Um,
install, and it would work.
and it would work.
I remember that
Yeah.
technique. But now these days, it don't work that well.
And in school, they only gave you one of the hard floppy disks in a really hard shell. Now they use them for the headphones. It was like that. They only give it to you in like a hard shell. And when you open it, it has the floppy disks inside. And they gave you only like 1 or 2. So that they gave you 2 in case the first one didn't work out.
Or in case you ran out of space on your first disc.
Oh my God, they need to bring those back. Oh, the memories. Oh, the memories.
Oh.
And a Nintendo 64 Game Boy.
And also you're talking about what about the old cassette tapes? You used to use the
Yes.
cassette tapes to save the game save computer games and stuff like that on a cassette as well.
Yeah, I remember that.
And listening to Colin Jackie O back in the day,
That
and
was
you
the
had to like
90s, yeah.
you had to take the tape deck out side A, and then you had to flip it, and then if the thing was coming out, you'd use your pencil to rewind it.
Well, it wasn't
Also-
Colin Jackie, it wasn't. It was basically a
No,
Ugly
was
Phil.
called-
It was
no.
Ugly Phil.
Yeah,
that
but
did
it was
that.
also Colin Jackie O and Labrat.
No,
remember.
I'm pretty sure Kyle and Jackie O came later, and then it was Kyle and
Because it was
Ugly
top
Phil.
40, Australia's top 40, and you could call and request a song.
No,
That-
one thing
that-
about
that
the
came
what I
later.
think I remember one thing about the old Commodore 64 cassette decks is it had a number. It always had numbers on the side of it to tell you whereabouts you were, and also with the old games, it would tell you if you want to get to this certain spot, you would have to fast forward the cassette up to that point, so I could read that particular spot. So there you go. It's a little bit of old Commodore 64 useless trivia for you guys.
Well, that was everything fun, I think, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. If you
No, it's
had-
even more fun. Junk food.
Hey, I was going to talk about that, but never mind. But
if there's an audience member that basically has
any
topics
topics
that
or
you'd
fun
like to talk
conversations
about,
you want us to talk about, please leave a comment below. Don't forget to subscribe, which is on the bottom right hand corner. You can subscribe either personalized, which you get some content, but if you want all content, subscribe to all. And leave a comment below. Leave a comment below. Let us know what you want us to talk about. if you had
don't
fun.
just look at something and then just turn it off. That's not
Yeah,
very
please
nice.
like, comment, and subscribe, and share to all your friends. And Cat Space is here to stay. Well, that was fun, wasn't it?
It totally was, yeah.
80s. What is
Makes
it
me
called?
want to go out and buy a
80s
Commodore
trivia.
64 now.
No, not trivia. 80s. What's the word when you remember?
80s music, movies, and
Food.
stuff.
And etc.
And etc. or etc. whatever
Well,
comes first.
We need to go have dinner. You need to have your dinner. Thank you so much for
I've
joining.
already had my
right
dinner.
here.
I'm gonna have my dessert now.
Well, enjoy your dessert. Thank you for joining us at Cat Space. And we look forward to doing another podcast with you next week. Stay tuned for more. Bye.
Bye.